Evening, everyone. Welcome to beautiful downtown Grand Forks. Grand Forks City Council's Committee of the Hold for Monday, April 13th. Item 1, call to order. 1.1, welcome or roll call.
Weigel.
Here.
Salsky. Here. Berg. Here. Lansky. Here. Friedels.
Here.
Dean. Here. President Sandy.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. Under informational items, 2.1, City Engineer Candidates Introduction. Mr. Phelan.
Yep, Council President Sandy and members of the committee of the whole. I have two candidates. We had interviews this afternoon with two candidates that are going to introduce themselves to you. And obviously, department heads are really important. They set the pace, they set the culture, and you should know that we have, we have terrific departments. We have terrific department heads and terrific city employees, and we really do have a wonderful culture that we want to preserve. And, that starts at the department head. And so I think we have two really good candidates that here. And, they had one thing they had in common was this. They love Grand Forks, and that's pretty impressive. And they'd love to be here. They'd like to help Grand Forks even be a better place. And, they represent a lot of city employees and department heads that a lot of people give their heart and soul to the city of Grand Forks. And at the very least, both these candidates have passed that test of their love for the city of Grand Forks. So with that, I'm going to have them both introduce themselves and kind of let you know what they want you to know about them. And I'm going to start with Christian Danielson. And then following Christian, that you know as our assistant city engineer here for the city of Grand Forks, I'm going to introduce Nick Collins, who's right here in front, and he works for the EERC. And so we'll start with Christian, and then after that, Nick will come up and introduce himself to you.
Mr. Danielson, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Todd. President Sandy, members of the committee, hopefully not a new face for most of you. I've been here for the past 7 years at the city, and like Todd said, really I've found Grand Forks to be a home. I'm not from Grand Forks, but it's really become a home for me. So it's just been really exciting over the last 7 years to be able to take on new challenges and responsibilities here in the engineering department and really grow as a professional. And a lot of that is due to the people, behind me here, Al Grasser, who the former city engineer put a lot of faith in me for a lot of things. And I think that really helped me as a professional. So I'm just really excited to be able to have the opportunity for a role like this and be able to continue working and serving for the city of Grand Forks. So I'll kind of leave it at that, as you guys have probably seen most of the items that I'm working on, and we'll see a couple more tonight here. So thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Todd, for the introduction, and members of the City Council. Thank you so much for this opportunity this evening. Nick Collins, I have a civil engineering and economics background. I've been at the EERC now for almost 18 years, working on a lot of advanced commercialization and research projects that involve energy and water sustainability. I was born and raised here in Grand Forks. I love it, as Todd said, just to be a part of this community and see how our infrastructure has grown so much over the years and where it has the potential to continue to grow. It allows me to have that opportunity here, and that's why I know that the city engineer is such a prestigious position that I'm very honored and humbled to be a part of, to participate in today. So again, I thank you very much for your time, and I hope you have a great evening.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate you introducing yourself.
And Mayor Buczynski, our timeline would be another contracted department head position that would be in front of you based upon the mayor's recommendation 2 weeks from today at the next committee of the whole meeting with a contract with hopefully one of the candidates here.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Item 2.2, Ray Richards Golf Course Redevelopment, Beacon Development Projects Updates. Thank you, Mr. Phelan.
Yep. Thank you. We have two, we've had, I think a couple in the last, couple months that have been 5 years or less. And we've talked about this Ray Richards Golf Course redevelopment and also the Beacon project. And so I just wanted to give you an update before we bring those back and get some feedback. Primarily on the Beacon project and primarily on the public plaza to get some feedback, because that kind of plays into how that project would be brought back to you. I also wanted to, as you recall, the city council has approved this. I'm gonna call it. We used to meet as a local government advisory committee with representatives of all the three governing boards plus George Hillier, the Park District. So you have created the Local Government Advisory Committee writ large, meaning everyone's invited now. And so that's really what this, I have made some modifications along with Mr. Gostin on here. I don't think there's substantive changes, but if you look at this version versus what was approved before, there are some changes to how it's written in those, so make it clearer. The county has approved it. We anticipate the school board approving it here at the last part of April. And so we've made some modifications and have moved that on to the school board based upon their initial review of that. So I don't think, Mr. Goss, there were, substantive changes. But if you guys want to reapprove this, we certainly would bring it to the next city council for reapproval. But most of those changes are more grammatical and how it's written and just trying to clarify this particular document. Before I get into this, so I have a timeline on the staff report with the Ray Richards Golf Course and Beacon. Baker Tilly is reviewing both of those projects currently. We're getting information back. Our goal, probably our most aggressive timeline is one I have in there where we would bring back both projects 2 weeks from today. We'd ask you to review those. We'd have a preliminary recommendation, and ultimately we'd ask that you go forward with this combined group to review it with all the various information. What we're planning to bring back to you is that the full application with based upon all the information and all the analyses. So we're not doing a pre-application to you that doesn't have all the information. Whatever that would come back to you at the next committee of the whole would have all the information. And so whatever, if it does get approved and we go to the combined meeting, that combined meeting would have all the information that you would approve moving forward with coming up. I'm not sure if Baker Tilly is going to have enough time to review all the stuff. Based upon if they get all the information, but we're going to give it a good shot to bring it back 2 weeks from today. And if not, I'll let the city council know that, we haven't made the timeline, but there's lots of work and activity going on. The other thing I want to bring up to you is you're used to seeing Michaela Hewitt from Baker Tilly. She's moved on to a new career path. She's become a finance director in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area, suburban community. So she's had a career change and has decided to do something else. And so you're going to see Steve Scharf, who you have seen when we do bond sales, and he advises on what some of the outcomes and all. He's going to lead a team, and there's a couple other advisors on there that he's working with. So moving forward, you're going to see Steve along with some new teammates that are here as Michaela has moved on to another great career. What I wanted to show you is focus on next is the Beacon Plaza, and we can just give you an update. And really what we're looking for is just some feedback before we bring the project back, or if you have additional questions. So some of the information is preliminary and that we've worked on. And I think the city council, you have seen, the Beacon project itself, and we have 2 buildings up. And I just want to, if you weren't here in 2020 and 2021, what was there was a townhouse hotel that was no longer open. And I just want to give you some financial numbers that I think this project is already well ahead of what it used to be in this location. So back in 2021, but prior to this project moving forward, there was a closed townhouse hotel. It was probably called something else, but it was a lesser version of what the townhouse would have been known back then. It was valued at about $2.3 million. Dollars in the taxable value that we were receiving was $115,000 for that particular project. The 2 buildings that are there, both the 1923 building, which is the building to the northwest, and the Spirit building, which is the east building. Those 2 buildings, their building values are now $28 million is what we have in assessing. The full taxable value is $1.4 million of what we estimate, and that translates into the current tax of $482,000 for those 2 buildings. So even with that, and I should highlight that the city council ultimately approved, along with the other taxing entities, a 80% incentive that would go towards paying for a revenue bond, a TIF revenue bond, to help pay for the public square. That 80% of the value was going to allow us to sell a 25-year bond. And that 25-year bond, we estimated back in that day would be worth about $6 to $7 million, and that would have helped pay for this public plaza. The other 20% went to all the taxing entities itself. The third building that they are planning is kind of the building that would be out front closer to Demers Avenue. They estimate the value of that being $17 million, with another taxable value of $850,000. And ultimately, that if you go in that same 80-20, the ultimate taxable value to start with would be $291,000. So if we get all three of those buildings, we estimated back in the day is that if we could redevelop that under three buildings versus the townhouse, that it would be valued likely around $50 million. Right now, we're projecting that value to be around $45 million for those three buildings. 100% of the taxation would be about $2.2 million. And that 80-20 split, the 20% split is that $774,000. And so I think all told, it's going to be a huge win for the city, but we got to move through all the various particulars. The other thing that they are looking at right now, there's 67 units in the 1923 building and then 65 units in the Spirit building. They are looking to fit up the second floor with additional residential units. And I think they estimated, I'm going to say between 20 and 24 units. So just using 22 as the midpoint. They estimate the number of units for that third building would be 87 units. And so if you assume the 22 additional units on that second floor, plus the 87 additional in that third building, we'd end up with about 241 units in that, along with that significant increased valuation and taxable value in that area. Again, here's what I'd like to focus on is this public plaza next, and we have some numbers. I'm going to ask Maureen if she can team up with me on some of the financial numbers that we've seen and what's in front of you. Mayor Buczynski has asked us as city administration find a way to find a way to move forward with the public plaza, find a way to do it so that it's year-round plaza too, so it has the 4 seasons, and so that's what we've worked forward and to try to find a way, and this is kind of where we are at today before we get your further input. I'm going to talk about this lease space. There's about a 4,400 square feet space right here, and that's in the 1923 building, which is a northwest building, and that was really intended to be restrooms, locker rooms for the ice skating and the hockey, and then also a concession kitchen area. So that was intended to be fit up for the city, a kind of a public space in the first floor of that northwest building. And generally this is where it's at. And the last I checked, it's like a little less than 4,500 square feet on the first floor. The other thing we've asked, and these numbers are from community contractors. And so this project, as I noted in the staff report, this project is trying to get revived and move forward after the Epic company's bankruptcy. Dakota Commercial and community contractors stepped forward and now are trying to take over both those 2 existing buildings and move forward with the third, and would like us to contemplate this public plaza also. So if you look at this, these are the estimates for the capital right here, and you can see the capital is at that $3.1 million for the capital. On the revenue side, we still have this 1.1 set aside. The other thing I should talk about, this $855,000, and so because this was set up as a TIF revenue bond over the last 3 years, any of the taxable value that 80% of the taxable value has been set aside, we'll call in a separate fund that the county's holding for all the various taxing entities. This $855,000 plus or minus is what we anticipate being in that fund. The request from the developer is that we would take that, not only would the city council have to approve this, but the other 2 taxing entities being the county and the school board would have to approve that, is that money that's been set aside in that separate fund. And in anticipation of selling a revenue bond, those funds would go into the public plaza itself. It would not go back to the various taxing entities. So that's one of the requests they have, a part of that, along with still moving forward with the city's $1.15 million in beautification funds. The other thing that they have right here is you have this 820,000 and the 100,000, that's 920,000. That's for that space that I just spoke of, that almost 4,500 square feet for the various entities. That's to get that fitted up. I'm going to have Maureen come up and kind of talk about some revenue sources we would have to help pay for that. And then ultimately, then there is almost the $1.7 million, and that's for the permanent ice. So that would be the boards, the plexiglass, the permanent ice that would go on so that it could be a useful rink to include hockey throughout the year. What the request is that Mayor Wojciechowski would go forward and ask the hockey community, and mainly the youth community, would they be willing to invest and to make this a hockey amenity for them, an ice skating amenity for them as part of this development. So the city, and Mr. Sandy had asked this early, really the city is part of this 1.15 for beautification funds. I think Maureen will tell you we're about 27% of this 855,000 in funds. And then Maureen's going to talk about this fitting up that first floor space, how we do that in this almost $1.7 million. That would be a request we'd ask Mayor Wojciechowski to go to the hockey community to see if would be something, a worthwhile investment that they would make. And maybe with that, I have Maureen talk about some of the financials.
Ms. Torsten?
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Todd. President Sandy, members of the committee. So with relation, I'll speak specifically to the request of the event space, locker rooms, concessions, food equipment that totals the $820,000 and the $100,000. So one of the options could be they could include that in a lease and we pay that over time. I'd rather, if we can do it, not pay interest on that and use funds that we have available. So when I look at our Fund 2163, and we do have, many uses coming out of that fund now, but what I was looking at when speaking with Todd is we have some reserve cash balances that are set aside that we haven't drawn on for a while, and I think we could use those and build them back up again if we still see the need is there. So if this public plaza is a priority for City Council, I would look to, we have a city festival cash. We originally had set it up for $250,000. This goes back to 2015. We've drawn on that $110,000. We have a balance there of $140,000. So that's in our Fund 2163 as a city festival cash. We also have some EDA restricted funds that are in 2163 that can be used for downtown area. So it would be an eligible use if we were to pull these funds in. And then we can rebuild that up if we want to replenish that for uses of town square. That balance is roughly $279,000. And then also we have set aside in COVID years contingency for the Alara Center, total $500,000 that we have not drawn on. Fortunately, have not had that need, and they've built internally sufficient funds, I believe, to have a healthy reserve at the Alara Center. But once again, we can rebuild this. That's $500,000 is still there. All said and told, those three cash balances are roughly $920,000. $919,172 is what I'm adding those up to be. So part of this too, when we look at those requests for the equipment and the event space, I think we still need to go through those numbers and fine tune that a bit. So I believe this 920 is worst case scenario on what we're looking at as far as fitting up that space. But those are where I'd be looking to pull funds in if this is the way council wanted to go.
Thank you, Maureen. And the other thing, we asked Oakview Group, that's operating that's Anna, to do a operating pro forma of this particular space, because not only do we know we got to build it, we have to operate it. And so this is the draft pro forma that they've come up with, and you can see it's planned to operate as a deficit. It basically includes, what kind of events we can have, and you can read that up here on the revenue side, the income side with advertising, and then some of the expense. The one thing that we did do, and you can see basically what the city would have to anticipate covering I think once it gets up and going, you can see, if you look at these years, 121,000 to 115,000. And so once the facility is stood up and is going in a 12-month period, we would probably look to start budgeting a deficit of around that 120,000 a year to operate this as part of, the city subsidizing the various, that particular space. The other thing I want to note is what we did do up here, and similar to the All-True Sports complex, is there, one of the major expenses would be the city utility bill, water, sewer, all those things. And so what we said on this is don't include that as part of the pro forma, that we would look at that separate as a separate city bill. So as part of this pro forma, it does not include that. Maureen, I don't recall what they had estimated with that utility bill, and it would be primarily water for the ice skating rink and doing all that sort of thing. So we haven't included that in this pro forma, but that would be another additional city expense that I can't recall offhand. But the plan would be, if you want to move forward, we'd ask them, OVG, to operate this as a complementary facility to the Alaris Center. Whether in the summer it would be for outdoor events, obviously, and then during the winter they would help with all the various hockey tournaments and the like, in helping to operate those, similar to what they do at the Alaris Center. I think with that, what we're looking for this evening, like a lot of things, we're trying to get to yes. We're trying to make this happen, just because that's how we're wired. But what we need from you is, the important part now is when we bring the project back, it's with and without the plaza space, because if it's going to be without it, we would go back to the developers and say, it's a likelihood that it's going to be, they want it included, with more details to come, or there's not a lot of interest to include it. I think when we talked to our city assessor, Tammy Lazur, we asked, what would be the value difference in these buildings, if the public plaza were there or if it wasn't. Tammy does not see a big value difference for the buildings. And so we're not going to be able to add 10% value onto the buildings if there's a public plaza next to it. The one thing that we have discussed and with Ms. Lazur is it's likely the first floor commercial that will exist is probably more valuable with the public plaza than not. The developers agree with that. So, we'll have to take a look at their pro formas and what they look like before we come back there. So I don't know. I'll just give you some academic figures. Perhaps with the public plaza, it's $18 a square foot for commercial, but without the public plaza, it's $10 a square foot. But we'll verify some of those and just kind of look at those valuations. But that's kind of where we sit with the project today. Really, we're looking for feedback. And so if we're able to come back in 2 weeks, or, worser case, 4 weeks from now, that we've got your feedback now, and we'll start driving some solutions based upon your feedback as city council.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Ms. Lensky?
Yeah, I got a couple questions. In the future, I don't understand why Ray Richards and the Beacon are on the same line. Could we separate them? It's just very confusing. Are we talking why they're together?
Council President Sandy and Councilmember Lunsky, they're together because I'm giving updates on both of them
Okay.
tonight. And so the timeline that I have on the staff report are for both of those projects, because we're trying to bring them in, knowing that we have to have this combined meeting, and we don't want to necessarily call two. So we're trying to keep these two aligned so that when they come back and we go through the whole process, which is that 2 to 3 month process, that we're shepherding them through in both ways.
Okay. And then the Oakview group, can we open that up maybe to RFQ to see what other options are available? I feel like there's some other entities in town that could possibly be a good fit for it too. I know you talked about tying it to the Alaris Center. I would love to see some options, maybe tying it to Town Square or, to downtown. I just don't think we should just go for the Oakview group without exploring some other options. So I was hoping we could possibly discuss that. And then, do you know who actually owns the Beacon now?
Don't you want to get
Maybe Mr. Gossi, you can help with that answer.
Yeah. Before, when we were working on the TIF agreement, I did, did some title work, and they're owned by various Epic entities. Now I understand, I haven't done further title work, but I understand through various processes that I think there's the developers have acquired the plaza site. I think that, again, I'm guessing a little bit as far as the exact title. I think the entities that were in existence that own the two buildings may still be in existence, except that the players that are the owners of that entity may have probably changed. But I believe the developer or one of the developers currently has ownership of the plaza site.
And so tonight, we're not actually voting on anything, right?
Nope. This is completely information, just so that we can hear feedback, like you just said, about maybe we should look at alternative strategies other than just OVG.
Thank you.
Mr. Friedels, Mr. Bean, any? Yes, sir.
I love the idea of the plaza part, because I think, I've been to the lights in Fargo, and I've met with a few people that so this is kind of something we need here to, a smaller, more intimate venue as opposed to the Alaris, which has, great stuff too. But I think moving forward with this makes it the plaza part makes it a real value added part and a destination like we're trying to do with many other sites here. So.
And Council President Sani, the reason why number one, we have a partnership with Oakview Group or OVG. We're going to do new RFPs here because the contract runs out in 27. So we'll have a new either existing group with OVG or a new group starting in 28. So we just thought, and we could separate that there's some synergies that with somebody with connections with concerts and all the things that we can drive to that facility. But we'd come back with RFPs on how we would want to perform that.
Mr. Bean?
Yeah, a couple of questions. The 920,000 you talked about, does that include design? A lot of that was listed as capital, if I remember right.
Yep, this would be all in. This is their
Design, materials, everything installed and operable.
yes.
Okay.
And, maybe I could ask one more question, maybe of Mr. Gossi on that. So right now we have, I think the developers, it's safe to say, have defaulted on the current agreement. So we'd come back with a new agreement. And that's why we're bringing it to you. This public plaza, if you move forward with, would end up in a development agreement with what the city has agreed to.
That's exactly right. And it's at that moment we'll do more due diligence on title, because we'll be, the way it's teed up is the city would acquire title to that public plaza site.
Then the other question was, you averaged about $120,000 a year loss, right, with the plaza?
Agreed.
Is there any impact on doing the plaza versus what we're spending in the town square right now? Are they competing against each other? Are they still profitable? And how do they meld?
Sure. I think that we want them to be complementary. The town square and this facility is a much larger facility than the town square. So, things that are being held right now in town square, we certainly want to continue to have them there. And this is really meant more as a value added piece where we could host larger events such as concerts during the warmer months. And then in the winter months, it would certainly be a focus of hockey and ice skating and those things with a permanent ice that we'd be able to do throughout the winter. So it should be value added. It shouldn't be, nobody should worry that it's, we're going to subtract from the others. And hopefully we're at a point in the community where we can see things as value added and not subtracting from somebody else.
And lastly, you said, the operation again would be $120,000 a year loss. Is there a cost even if we don't do anything? Is there a loss there also, or of value?
Council President Standing, Councilmember Vian. That's why I talked about the value of the buildings. Ms. Lazur thinks that, the values of the buildings are going to be relatively the same regardless. So I don't think there's a financial loss there. Maybe, like I said, maybe there's a loss on the commercial side about trying to rent out that space. For how much, there's maybe a loss there. But if the city doesn't choose to own that lot and do all these, obviously, if we don't do the public plaza, I wouldn't recommend owning that lot. It would go back to the developers. And like a lot of complexes, they'd create some sort of space amenities for their tenants that are there. And it would be more of a private facility for they and their tenants than a public plaza.
Thank you. Ms. Osowski?
Yes, thank you. So first off, I'm not in agreement with the Ray Richards Golf Course pilot nor the Beacon development really at all. I'm going to first start off with kind of following up with what Ms. Lunsky said about maybe choosing a different, if it does get built, then choosing a different entity besides OVG. If you even look up that company in 2025 from the Texas Moody Center, like they were charged with bid rigging. There was $15 million that they had to pay to the DOJ because they got caught with kickbacks. They've been involved with antitrust case with Live Nation, and like people in Texas have had to terminate contracts with them. And there were missing funds in Connecticut. And so I do have a little bit of an issue with, I guess, us not even looking at other companies to help. I'm sure that stuff goes on with other companies. It really bothers me that, just last week, we were here and we had a bunch of citizens show up talking about how we jacked up, their property values and their taxes are going up. And now here we are just planning a project that we're going to go negative in. When I first heard about this project, when it was first brought to us, I thought that we were going to give them their tax money and the $1 million out of the beautification. And now we're talking, I guess, about another $1.7 million that's going to be pulled out of, a bunch of different funds, including the Alara Center, which, I think the Alara Center is doing really well right now, and I would hate to see us pull cash funds out of their account just so we can build something that we're going to go into the negative with every single year. I disagree that we need this. We can barely run the public plaza we have, and we just want to build and then dump it off on someone else to run. We could have easily, by not building the basketball courts, saved, a few $1 million and then maybe went in on this project. But I think at this point, we're spending a lot of tax money and we're not building something that's going to be profitable. It's going to be something that we're going to take a loss on every single year. Just like the Hive, I'm sick of investing in things that are just that we're constantly paying to maintain just because they look pretty or sound good. It's not our job as taxpayers to fund this kind of stuff. And I think we fund enough playthings around our community, and we have roads that are falling apart, and there are all sorts of other things that we could spend, an additional $3 million on, and that would probably go a long way. Not only that, are we still on the board for our Greenway project? I thought they were competing. Were they trying to get funding for that also? I really have a lot of concerns with the amount of money that we're spending on places and we can't even take care of our own spaces.
I think the answer I think there was a question on the Greenway that project continues to move forward, and I suspect you'll see that in the future.
Okay. I'm really a no for all of this. I think we're getting to the point where we're excessively spending, especially we just bonded for $100 million and now we're going to borrow out of all these different funds just to put something there that we're going to lose money on. And I disagree that this is a good use of our taxpayer funds at this point.
Ms. Burke, something to add?
I question if our other taxing entities will be in support of this moving forward with the constraints that they're facing. I would like to see our downtown completed though and have this additional feature. I think having another music venue with this plaza could be very beneficial for our city and bring us acts that we're not able to secure right now. And we would be able to compare and compete better with Fargo. We're going to be able to bring in smaller acts that can't sustain at the Alaris Center because it is too big. We need this other size arena. However, I don't want to see it operate at a loss. Rebecca made some great points about our taxpayers and what we have an obligation to do. And so I'd like to see this move forward, but I'd like to see us move forward and find a way for us not to be at a loss.
Thank you. Mr. Weigel, anything to add for the good of the order?
Yeah, I would just say that I think Oakview Group has done a tremendous job running the Alaris Center. President Sandy, you can probably chime in best, and Mr. Veen can as well, of what it was like prior to Oakview Group running the Alaris Center. And so I think we've made tremendous strides. The company's done a great job. And I'd like to see them continue running the Alaris Center as well as having an opportunity to run this facility as well. I think they're two distinctly different types of facilities, and I think they do equally great at both of them. And I'll just leave it at that. And maybe President Sandy, you can provide some context of what it was like prior to an industry standard company like Oakview Group coming in and running the place.
Thank you, Mr. Weigel. Well, certainly it has been much nicer, smoother, more profitable, and more energetic under the Oakview Group than whether it was prior to when the city ran the facility or the previous organizations. I think all of us want to see, I think even Ms. Osowski would like to see the project finished. She just disagrees how we're going to pay for it, and that's okay, but I think she would want to see it finished. I question, and I'm not doubting people's expertise. Right now, the revenue that we're planning to generate is mostly off concessions. I don't understand how we're going to have 142 events. I'm sure that somebody thought that made sense, but when your concession stand is your major, I mean, that's essentially, if we're not selling concessions, we're losing a lot more than 120 grand a year, plus the 50 grand for the management fee. So we're going to have to be very cognizant of the fact that if there aren't people there, we're going to have a real financial problem. The thing about this project that I'm constantly spinning my head around and trying to wrap my arms around is who's benefiting from this plaza. We were the original intent of this is we were going to buy a bond. We were going to use the proceeds to pay for the plaza. We were going to own the plaza, and we were looking at this big grandiose concept. This has changed quite a bit, and I'm still, again, at this minute, not sure that this is what the city of Grand Forks signed up for in the first place. And I mean, I'll be brutally honest. I think that the folks that ultimately are the owners of the Beacon certainly will get a lot more benefit out of this plaza than Tricia or Todd or maybe the entire citizens of Grand Forks, unless that is we can get the hockey folks to pitch in a couple $1 million to do the arena. I don't know why we're going to pay 800 grand for the land. I'm not convinced we want to own this. And so, again, I'm just asking maybe it's a rhetorical question. Maybe we should ask the developers if they'd be willing to donate the land. Then it becomes a little more palatable, and you have a few years worth of, if we're going to lose money for a while, we got 800 grand to play with. Again, I don't know if they have the resources to just gift us the land. I don't know. I keep thinking that it's a lot. I think it'd be a lot easier to get this board to yes, as Ms. Berg was saying, if we've got some backup just in case we start losing money. It'll at least give us some runway to figure it out. Just my opinion. Mr. Veen, other comments?
If I could follow up with the question that Danny had asked about when we saw OVG, I not knowing anything of what was just stated about things outside of Grand Forks here, but the work that we've got from OVG in at the Alaris Center has been pretty phenomenal, I would say. We've talked about, that facility has exceptional quality of life and economic impacts. But in the 8 years since they've been here, they've had over $93 million of direct economic impact on the community of Grand Forks. Most of that in the last few years, but that's significant to have that kind of impact. That's what that facility does for us and does for this community. And for me, if you could have the same people doing one, you could have some events one place, some events another place. They're not competing against each other. They're working well for each other. The number of concerts and the shows that they've had at the various venues, I think, has really made us kind of the envy of a lot of cities around here that don't have what we have here in Grand Forks. So I like what they do. I'm on that commission. I obviously get to see this stuff firsthand, and I see a real value there as we go forward, and currently what they're doing also.
Thank you, Mr. Dean.
Council
Yes.
President Sandy, if I could add something, if I failed to do this. Also, I want to go through the capital. You can see there's a deficit of about over $1.1 million. And so the proposal is that the developer with those three buildings would, cover whatever that funding gap is for the capital part. So when we've talked to them, they feel like that's part of their, cost share that they're willing to step up to. And I'm sorry, I forgot to note that. The other thing is, Mr. Sandy has said, when this project was envisioned, it was going to be a revenue bond over 25 years. What the developer, and again, we're reviewing this pilot, what they're asking for now is instead of that 25-year, again, they are asking for that 3 years that have gone into that fund to come back into this facility, but they're asking for an 80% 15-year pilot right now, and we're reviewing that to see if that's something that this project is needed. And so their argument is that, it was going to be 25 years. Now what we're asking for is a pilot for 15 years, so that gap's been shortened, by some years, right? But then they're asking for the plaza to be, on the capital side to be funded in an alternative way. And that includes, the city being more involved. The other thing on the operating side, when the Epic companies were here and they wanted this to be a complementary facility to the lights, what was going to happen is they were going to pay for the operating of the facility itself. There were going to be through so that gap, that $100,000 to $200,000 gap, that was going to be made up by fees on the various commercial spaces, and so that was going to be the funding of how they were going to pay for, anything that needs to be subsidized by that facility. So obviously some of that's gone away and it's a different project now, but when it was first presented to City Council, it wasn't intended to be frank, to have an operating deficit that the city of Grand Forks would have to pick up to on an ongoing basis.
So just so we're clear, there's 855,000 and change. Of that, about 27% is the city. So I can't remember. Ms. Storr said you emailed me. It's like 250.
It's around 228,000.
Yeah. Okay. So there's $630,000 that the other taxing entities are going to have to agree to keep into the project. Do we have any idea? Because everyone at this table knows they're not going to agree to that.
I think it's going to be awfully challenging. I agree with that, President Sandy. I think their argument is that they're getting a plaza. I would say their thoughts are the school district, school board, they're getting a big benefit out of this facility. Certainly, the city of Grand Forks is not involved in recreational activities. And so they see this with the hockey facility, with the event space, that will be a complement to for the school board, for kids, for what they're doing. So they see it as a complement, much like we did with the Ultra Sports Complex. Certainly, the city of Grand Forks gets an economic impact out of that. But, remember when we went through there, we got the UND to agree that the park district and the school district would be able to use the Pollard as they have at the current rates. We got that accomplished. Through these incentives, we've done a lot for our partners that they would not have been able to do without us and without the projects. And so that's their mindset, that this creates a lot of value, economic impact. And if there's one entity that's going to see some benefit, it would be the school district.
Do we have any idea what's the 80%? How much is that annually for 15 years?
So when I compare a 25-year 80% to a 15-year 80%, so that 10-year difference for the first two buildings, it means you're bringing in a roughly $4 million more than for that 10-year savings. That's all entities. If you add on a third building for 10 years, that would add another $2 million onto that. So it does bring in more value, more money to all taxing entities faster.
What's the benefit to the developers?
For they get the 80% for the 15 years or the 25 years, whichever.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know how much that is?
Let me look.
I should be able to back my way into it. If 20% is 4 million, then 80% is 6 million, right? Or then
And right now,
No,
Baker Tilly's
8
kind of looking
million,
at that
right.
pro forma.
10 million.
And 15 years. And so what we've been told by the developers, and we'll verify this through Baker Tilly, is that the two buildings are not deriving enough revenue over expenses to pay taxes. And so what's happening right now is investors are, at the end of the year, are putting in money to help pay for the taxes. And so that's where they say they're at. We're going to verify that, but it sounds like if that's all true, that's what you're going to see as part of their financial pro forma, is that they're having a challenging time with the existing conditions of the facility to make property tax payments at 100% without investors providing further revenue to the project.
yeah, 16
Okay.
million, but go on. Yeah.
So they're not making enough revenue to pay their taxes, so they want us to give them basically our tax money so they can make enough money to pay their taxes?
I think their mindset is more that we're trying to obviously the two buildings I've gone over that are much better than what was there before.
I understand that.
And so what they're asking for is just to have people to be open-minded, to say that we're trying to step into a challenging situation. We're local developers. We're willing to help move this forward. And I think what they're really asking for is just a positive feedback. It's easy to criticize this, but at least they've stepped into the arena and are trying to find a solution, the way forward. And what they're saying is they need the local taxing entities to be a partner to make it all go.
I mean, I do want to see the project finish. It's a giant eyesore. I believe I complained about it last summer because they were letting just everything be overgrown. But I don't think that should be put on the shoulders of our taxpayers, because the project went awry and there were issues, and now it's a taxpayer problem. And I'm really sick of the taxpayers picking up the burden, whether it be through pilots or funding, the center portion of that, just so the buildings can make money. I mean, when are we going to make money as a city? Because we're going to operate at a loss. We're going to give them a tax break just so they can be profitable on their buildings.
I think Council President, I think what they're looking for, and we're all looking for, do we want to do the public plaza or not? If we don't want to do the public plaza, we keep our 1.15 million. That 800 and some thousand that's set aside will likely go back to all the taxing entities. And they'll do what they got to do with the public plaza, and it will simplify the project. So is it more complicated to do the public plaza? Does it provide more risk? Is it more of a pain in the butt? It's yes to all those things. But is there some upside? Yes. And we're just looking for some feedback, and we'll bring back what this board wants, as well as in this case, what you think the appetite would be of the other local governing boards.
I guess I'm not interested in the pilots or the public plaza or the taxpayers funding the public plaza. So
I think the whole story is difficult because the other taxing entities, I think anything beyond 5 years, basically the school district and county are relatively vocal that they're not going to support that. So I don't know how we make all of this happen. I don't know. Anybody want to do anything?
well, it's just informational, so we can move on.
Right.
So let's move on.
Okay.
I think Council President Sandy, what we'll do is we'll bring back, what I'm hearing is we're going to bring back a project. The simplest way for us to bring this back is without the public plaza, because we bring back these 3 buildings. We try to get it within the 5 years and see what that looked like.
Mm-hmm.
And the developers, and we want to know, is there significant enough interest in the public plaza that we try to make that work as part of bringing this project back here in a couple weeks?
Okay.
And
Yes.
what I hear right now is kind of split on the public plaza. So I think what we'll do is we'll try to run it both ways, with and without. And and I don't think there's going to be a major difference, but we'll probably come in and try to keep this within 5 years. And on the public plaza, based on your feedback and some of the questions you had, we'll try to refine that even more and bring that back as a separate thing. So, but really the city council needs to make a decision on that public plaza if you want to move that forward. That's all about the city trying to close the gap on that.
Great. Yes, Ms. Lansky.
I really want to see the public plaza happen. Is it possible to bring forward the greatest scenario? If we do have 142 events, how much sales tax can we bring in? Or maybe that would sweeten Ms. Osowski's thoughts on the public plaza. Or I feel like right now it has a negative twist, that like there's how much economic impact could it have if we had these 142 events or.
Yeah. Council President Sandy and Councilmember Lunsky, we'll bring it back with, when the Alaris Center does, I think Visit Greater Grand Forks helps them with the impact. So I will ask before we come back what that economic impact would be for those events. And certainly the Alaris Center is showing a economic impact. And remember that there is a operating revenue that's coming in from a tax too that helps make sure that we're better able to be in the black most years.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anything else for the good of the order? Okay, moving on. Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Good discussion. Discussion items. We have 15 of them. 3.1 bid award project 9094, 9095, 96, and 9097 districts 629, 369, 630, and 803 sanitary sewer, water main, storm sewer, and paving for Grand Park First Edition.
Motion to approve.
Move approval by Berg. Is there a second? Second by Friedhoffs. Any other comment? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 3.2, bid award for project 9004 and 9005, 2026 city sidewalks and ADA curb ramps.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Berg. Second by Lunsky with a comment.
You knew I was going to bring this up, but the ADA curb ramps, they're just not aging well. Is there something better in the future? Like recently saw, it was in another city and they had done them out of concrete. Just the ones that were plastic. I know you've moved on from them, but they're cracked. They're almost more of a nuisance than anything. So I'm just curious what this plan is.
Good evening, Councilmember Lunsky. You're correct. We did have a standard in Grand Forks there was a period of time we used the plastic detectable warning panels, and they would often get hit by a snowplow or just freeze thaw. They just deteriorated. So we have moved to called a patina colored, more of a cast iron durable detectable warning panel, and we've only been doing that for I'd have to guesstimate 2 to 3 years at this point. So the results of that are, we're still observing to see how they perform, but we're constantly looking for better products. And right now we feel that that's the best solution that we see on the market. As far as those that are deteriorated across the city, that's why we have this contract to replace some of those, install them where they're missing. But honestly, there's many intersections that require these, so it'll take a little bit of time to get these caught up.
Thank you.
Very good. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. 3.3 bid award for project 9006 2026 asphalt street repairs.
Move approval.
Moved by Veen, second by Lunsky. Any further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. 3.4 bid award for project 9049 District 796 reconstructs 11th Avenue North from Northeast 4th Street to Gateway Drive. Moved by Osowski. Is there a second by Berg? Thank you. Further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 3.5, bid award for project 9007, 9008, 9009 concrete subdivision, arterial, and street repairs.
Motion to approve.
Moved by Berg. Is there a second by Lunsky? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Aye. Motion carries. Sandy dissents. Thank you. Item 3.6, bid award for project number 8577, District 363, Highway 81 and associated area, water main phase 3. Mr. Danielson, anything new to add on this exciting project?
Final phase of the water main out in that area. It's going to be special assessed and covered by the city. Nothing will go to the property owners and hopefully close out the water main development out
I
there.
move approval.
Okay, moved by Sowski, second by Berg. Further comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 3.7, bid award for project 9058, English Coulee Diversion Box Culvert Repair at 17th Avenue South. Moved by Berg. Thank you. Is there a second by Veen? Thank you. Further comment? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 3.8, bid award for project 9056, water main on South 42nd Street from 18th Avenue South to Empire Drive. Standard water main project.
Motion to approve.
Moved by Berg. Second by Friedel.
Second.
Oh, no, Mr. Weigel was too late. Try again. Further comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. 3.9, plans and specs for project 8795 paving on 70th Avenue North from Highway 81 to 1/2 mile west of North 55th Street.
Motion to approve.
Moved by Berg, second by Weigel.
That's correct.
Thank you. Yep. Any further comment? Hearing no. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 310, plans and specs for city project 9052.01 and 02 South End Drainway expansion from South 34th Street to I-29.
Motion to approve.
Ms. Berg moves approval. Mr. Veen, second with a comment or no comment? No. Any other comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, item 311, project 9113 RFQ Alara Center scoreboard replacement. Mr. Danielson.
Thank you, President Sandy, members of the committee. So past couple weeks here at the council meetings, we've been discussing the Alaris scoreboard and the process that we're going to use moving forward to acquire a new scoreboard for that facility. Following last Monday's council direction, we have sat down and drafted a request for qualifications, an RFQ, to acquire professional services, to put together plans and specifications and design documents to be able to go out for a competitive bid process. That request for qualifications is attached to your staff report, and it has also been reviewed by the Finance and Renovation Committee at the Alaris Center, and we've incorporated some of those comments, and I've had some conversations with Mr. Veen as well to incorporate some of his thoughts into that request for qualifications. You'll notice that we kept it really generic as far as what the project's looking for, use some of those documents previously that had been used for the Sourcewell acquisition to get a general scope of what we're looking for, and then we'll have whoever we select better define that. Also listed in your staff report is a recommended group for the selection committee to be involved with selecting the best qualified firm to do the design work. And you can see that listed out here on your second sheet of the staff report, as well as a tentative schedule to do that. We're looking to submit the RFQ into the public on, I believe, April 22nd with a closing date of May 14th. And when we do send that out, we've got a handful of companies that have been sent to us from different people at the Alaris or just different people involved in this space that we think we can send this out to and hopefully gain some interest on it. So at this point, we are just looking to get the RFQ approved so that we can move forward with the hiring process.
Thank you. Ms. Lunsky?
I'm just curious why we're replacing the same thing and we're not looking for an upgrade. I saw like in the rendering, the big screen had the score on the bottom and then it was repeated on the ribbon below. Have we looked at any other options of just making it one giant screen or coming up with something new? It just seems like we're just going to replace.
President Sandy, Councilmember Lunsky, I think that's part of what this professional services will help define. There will be stakeholder engagement and communication throughout the community with the Alaris Center, with the City Council. I anticipate that will help define that. Is there something different that we want? That will be part of the process that we are hiring right now if we want to go a different direction. So this is just a tentative scope to get somebody on board, and from there we would better define what the project is going to be.
So, Mr. Danielson, I have a question for you. You're not an LED board designer yourself, right?
I am not.
Right. I would dare to say very few people in this room are, and I certainly am not. But I mean, these video boards, they're just glorified computer monitors. And I'll tell you that, I know that, that's what they are. There is specialized software to help run them and do some of the funky things, but this isn't rocket science here. So I think this RFQ is great, and I think there are a lot of organizations that are going to be qualified to do this. I do question a little bit some of the things that we're asking. It based upon the qualifications that or the scoring criteria, it feels like it would be hard for a small firm or certainly a one-person firm to meet the qualifications, even though they may have all of the capabilities to do this design.
There are a handful of things in there that we included to try and gain a sense of scope with the facility that we're working in. I think you're right that there are some things for a small firm in there. We've got some requirements in there that would require some pretty specialized equipment. Part of that, I'll admit, is me not being a scoreboard expert and trying to make sure that we're covering our bases and have a group of professionals that are capable of doing anything that we could ask them to do in that building. But as far as the details of that, you're right. I'm not an LED board specialist and don't know what is and isn't specifically necessary. So we covered our bases on it.
Sure. So just a good comment. The NCAA compliance knowledge, right? Identifying team members familiar with NCAA rules for scoreboard content. What does the designer have to do with what the future owner is going to put on the scoreboard? And again, likely a rhetorical comment, because I don't know how that fits in. We're asking people to design a series of television sets for us, not anything that's going to go on the television sets. So perhaps, Mr. Veen, maybe there's something I don't know that because somebody came up with this idea. Maybe I don't know who put this together, and maybe I'm wrong because you've been in those meetings. Maybe there's something that's more to it than.
No, I'm just like you. I've never done this before either, but we worked together a little bit on this thing here. We did try to identify the major portions that we had and then looked at what the categories should be within each major portion. Because what we're doing is looking for the most qualified person that can lead this process. Bring in the people that they may need to or not. But you got to have some basis for being able to put together a design. And I would do it like Slensky said, what do we really need? I mean, they're going to be able to tell us, can we just do this with one big board and run that on the bottom of it? Do you know what I mean? Or is there going to be various? I don't know the answer to that, but I did go online and research what are the typical things asked of a designer. And we took those things that we thought were mostly critical, standard for people to do when you're designing something like this and inserted them into this, which I think just makes the most sense. When you get into it and we do the selection, we start giving them points, we'll have probably a much better idea as they bring forth. Because I was kind of similar to you. It's when we say this thing, is it a project, a building project equipment? It's primarily equipment. It's a big board that you're going to put up and you're going to hang it on the wall, right? So you could do many different types of selections, but that's why we were able to look at it as equipment. But the programming, the cabling, and some of that is going to take professional expertise outside of just this, and we will build, I think, the right team that can do it all.
Yeah, I'm not judging because I don't have the answers either. I'm just pointing out some of the things in the evaluation criteria that make me scratch my head a little bit. Like one other, and then I'll move on. References are 10% of the criteria. And we're going to prioritize references from NCAA Division I athletic departments or venue managers of similar sized or larger venues. Well, that certainly provides a decided advantage to people that are doing very high-end arenas, right? But there are a lot of organizations, from what I've been told, that do very large video boards, for example, in schools or in churches, that wouldn't be, or at least wouldn't be getting priority, even though they're providing the exact same quality or type of system. So to me, I mean, I recognize that we're fitting up an arena, but it's a television set.
But you are also fitting up the programming. You will have to obviously be able to do the programming. You're going to have to make sure that this works concurrently with the existing boards that we have, so that they will work together. Yeah,
I think the team would be able to delve into that. I mean, we know today the software that's currently being run for the other boards. It'd be very easy to find out, for example, do you have any experience or do you have any references for that type of software?
Yeah, and I think you do have the control center where all of this is, where you have, running the different videos, and you got the cameras as a part of this, and there's some other pieces well beyond just the board.
Sure.
But even the boards, I mean, I've thought about this. You compared it to a TV. I can go to Best Buy and I can get a Sony TV for a 42-inch for $500, or I can buy it $2,500.
Of course.
There's a difference between those two boards, and what are you getting? Which is the one that's most appropriate for what we need or don't? I'm hoping that we can find out who can do that kind of a thing.
Sure.
Who manufactures it, all the pieces to it.
Again, this is for someone to design the system, not to actually build it and install it, right? So, okay, and I think as we go through the process or see people responding, hopefully, I don't know, we probably shouldn't change the criteria in the middle of things look imbalanced, but Mr. Friedels?
Yeah,
Yes,
so
sir?
I have been through these purchase processes with larger systems like this. And so, I mean, you can watch a TV that's got a refresh rate that's one speed versus another, and then one of the things that we came across was replaceability. Like we talked being built into two separate systems. We've had issues where one part goes out, you got to order a Chinese part that may or may not be made anymore. So the ease of replacing parts and pieces of it. I know I saw that warranty and everything's included in there, but that is a big deal. And the software interface, is it going to be Wi-Fi? Can someone update it from home if something needs to be changed real quick? I think there's just the technology integration part is probably just as important as the design process, but there is some things that I think we'll see this flushes out into. So, but there is quite a bit that goes into it.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. So, I guess the question then today is, do we approve of this process for the RFQ? Ms. Osowski?
Approval.
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Weigel. Move and a second by Ms. Osowski. Further comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Danielson. 312, plans and specs for project 9051.1, paving 17th Avenue South west of 42nd Street from South 42nd Street to ASC to the Altru Sports Complex. It's the construction of 17th Avenue South west of 42nd Street to provide the road back in past the Children's Museum and to the Altru Sports Complex.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Move approval by Friedel, second by Veen. Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Shane, for being here tonight. All that time. 313, cost participation and maintenance agreement for project 8730 Point Bridge rehabilitation.
Good evening, Council President Sandy and members of the committee. So what you have before you is the standard agreement that we see with the DOT on most of the federal aid projects we end up getting. There's a couple of unique aspects to this agreement in that Minnesota is leading this project, and so there's a funding transfer component to it. Beyond that, we're looking at a total project cost of right around $2.5 million between construction and the engineering of it. And this project is including concrete spall repairs, curb work, painting, guardrails, as well as the steel that's underneath it. With this, when we originally ended up scoping this project out and requesting the funding back in 2021, some of those repairs have expanded in scope, and so we have looked at some increases in cost. With that and taking into consideration, we ended up shifting the federal funding over to the construction project, and so the request for the budget amendment this evening is for the coverage of the engineering costs. So overall, we're looking at a total project cost of roughly $2.5 million. We're anticipating our city share to be roughly $334,000, and our current budgeted item for that is $230,000. And with that, I can stand for it, or I should say staff's recommendation is to approve the cost participation and maintenance agreement, as well as any necessary budget amendments.
Are there any comments or
Motion to approve.
Yeah.
moved by Berg?
How-
Se-
I have a question.
Second by Lunsky, comment by Osowski.
Yeah, how are we paying for this?
This is coming out of Street and Infrastructure Fund 4815. And so we have $230,000 budgeted for it currently, and we're anticipating that our total city cost is probably going to be around $335,000.
So where are we gonna get the extra $100,000? Just pull it out of that fund,
Yeah, cash carryover from
cash
that fund.
carryover? Thank you.
Ms. Lunsky?
The Point Bridge seems to have a lot more problems than the other bridges, or am I imagining that? It seems like there's a lot more repairs.
The Point Bridge itself, it was, I think, last rehabilitated back in 2006, so it's been about 20 years. And so whether it's some pothole repairs or some of the other minor issues that we've seen popping up, we've kind of seen some of those closures come and go as a result of that. As part of this rehabilitation project, we're trying to get all of those different pieces, and that's part of the reason why the scope expanded, was to make sure that we took care of all those issues rather than restricting it down to what we had budgeted. So hopefully we can avoid those issues in the near future.
And do bridges have a lifespan? Like, it seems like it's getting kind of old. Are we worried that one day it'll fail, or?
When it comes to the age of bridges in town, this bridge, I believe, was built in 1967. So it may seem relatively old in that regard. However, we do have older bridges. You know, the Kennedy and Sorley, I believe, are older than that. So I'm not a bridge expert by any means, but bridges do have a significantly longer lifespan than I would imagine what this would have.
Thank you.
Mr. Krenko, we're not doing anything to the approach to the bridge on either side, or are we?
I don't recall specifics on that one, but I can certainly look into that and get back to you.
Okay, there's what seems like a pretty substantial dip on the East Grand Forks side. That would be a significant undertaking to change that, though, wouldn't it?
It's been a while since I've driven over the bridge myself. So
Everybody comes this way, David.
I normally stay in Grand Forks.
All right.
Mr. Sandy, I think that's a great thought, though. I mean, that bridge goes down early for us because of some of those low spot dips. And so
Right.
looking at that as an opportunity, I think is well worth it. You may have to put some culverts in to get the flow to go through, but eventually it's going to go over. But I think it's a good comment.
Thank you, Mr. Bean. Further comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
314 award project 9115 HVAC replacement unit at the Public Works facility. There were two bidders.
Motion to approve.
Lowest bid was accepted. Motion by Berg, second by Lunsky. Further comment? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 315, amendment to City of Grand Forks purchasing policy. The draft amended policy was attached. So I had made this request based upon the contract award previously at the Alara Center related to the Daktronics board. I'm not totally against sole source purchasing. I just think that if we have an opportunity to, and we're going to use a purchasing group like Sourcewell, which I've come to really dislike Sourcewell. At a minimum, the contracts the Sourcewell awards for certain things, they award multiple contracts under each RFP or RFQ. We should be looking at them expeditiously and trying to get each of their awardees to bid on our projects, in my opinion. I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity to read the draft amendment. So the purchasing policy, the only change is that purchases made pursuant to a cooperative or joint purchasing agreement shall have additional requirements to include city council pre-approval is required prior to any purchase from a cooperative or joint purchase agreement, and B, solicits bids from qualified vendors of the cooperative or purchasing agreement. Seeking such city council approval, information must be presented to city council regarding the project being suitable for and consistent with the scope of cooperative or joint purchasing agreement rather than through by developing plans, specs, designs, and subsequent bidding, public bidding procurement process for the project. I think it just gives an additional level of knowledge for the city council.
Move
approval.
Motion by Osowski, second by Weigel. Any further comments? Mr. Veen, yes, sir.
I think ultimately we want to do whatever's best for the city, right? As what we try to do. These type of contracts typically may have cost savings. You don't go through as lengthy of a process as you would through design, bids, return, and whatever, specs completion. And you should be able to get a cost break because you're bidding, these people are bidding on a bigger amount than the small amount we were be looking at. I think of things like traffic paint. You buy a 5-gallon barrel of traffic paint here, and when they're looking at 25 containers or whatever it is, and you get breaks based on volume lots of times when you're doing this. That's an advantage to the city. Time is money. It's also an advantage to the city to be able to look at if there's really time savings and staffing that you don't do, and you can go and look at a price and see what that price is. And yet, who wouldn't want to see somebody locally looked at? You know, if there's ever a chance, we always want to be local, but at what's that break point between potentially paying more to keep it local versus paying less and going to a larger national? I don't know the answer to that. I just bring that out because those are two of the major reasons why I think you use something like that. Sometimes I'm thinking of just buying pumps for the lift station, and you can go and you could pick out a pump and have it here if you need it, because it might be available, you know. So that's what I'm trying to weigh. The concept is really good. Is it truly advantageous for the community to add the additional steps, and will it make a difference? And I don't know, maybe Todd or somebody else could answer that. If we can do it, we always want to keep it local. In fact, when we re-looked at the bidding of the scoreboard, it was, could we have done it local, right? You and I have talked about that.
Council President Sandy, I see this as a pre-approval. So what this policy is going to require is that we come for pre-approval before we come back to you with, if we can use a cooperative, we're just basically saying what we want to do and how we're going to do it. So we get pre-approval. And similar to what the state of North Dakota has to do. So Dan Gosta and I had an opportunity to speak with the purchasing czar with the North Dakota Office of Management and Budget. And what she described to us is what's required at the state level is that you got to go out and do a public advertising. Say, for instance, you're going to use Sourcewell for a specific thing. They go out and do a public advertisement so that if somebody wants to protest, there's an opportunity for them to do that. So what I feel like we're doing here is, as part of the pre-approval, everyone should have an opportunity to know what's going on. Because first we'll bring it under pre-approval, get city council say you can move forward in this way, and then we'll come back at the following call with that process going forward. So there'll be actually 4 meetings if we're going to use, a cooperative or joint purchase in this regard. And the only other thing is I provided a summary list, and obviously I found out from other departments that we've used this more than I anticipated, whether it's those 3 different areas. I said Sourcewell, the North Dakota State bid, or there's that final buying group. So it's more than I thought. But the other thing I noticed is that a lot of times with these various cooperative purchases, joint purchases, local or regional vendors are generally the bidder that we've gone with. The department heads have also said, for instance, with vehicles, if there's a price that they see on, we'll say, for example, this North Dakota State bid, they do check with local vendors to see if that's the best price that they can get. And they do some comparison too with that. So with that, we just want to make sure everyone knows. And I think this process it'll be more meetings, but it certainly should provide more transparency.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Further comments? Yes, Ms. Lensky?
I think where I get confused, for a 5-gallon thing of paint, it has a list price. Usually you can go to a website, okay, you buy it through Sourcewell, you get 10% off, plus Sourcewell gets paid somewhere in there. So, but where I get confused is like Daktronics it's a custom project, so then the 10% off, it's just a little fuzzy in my head where exactly that fits in, because you can't go to their website and say 16 by 20 LED board.
Right. I would agree.
Mhm.
That's part of
Yep.
the conversations we had. That one there of all of them is probably the most complex type of a way to use it. It was There's advantages to doing it because of it. There was advantages to doing it because of the time frame, but you didn't know where, you couldn't validate your costs to the level that you would want.
If Council President, if I could add on to that scoreboard, I think the other lesson learned on this, if we're going to go through we just saw that with what Christian was up here talking about the time frame. If you're going to go through if the city council wants us to go to a formal process, that's a 6 to 8 month period of time. And by the time the scoreboard project came, there was no way to go through that process if we were going to have boards this summer. So that was the original issue we had. And it tells us all, if we're going to go through a formal process, we got to have time to do it. And if you don't have time to do it, we're going to have to punt. In this case, we've punted to 2027. And what we've heard at the commission, well, we hope the boards work in 2026. And I sure hope they do too. But I'm just telling you, the situation that we were put in was untenable. It was a no-win situation. And I don't want to be put in that situation again. Maureen doesn't want to be put in that situation. And we're not going to be put in that situation again because it was a no-win situation.
Okay. Nobody wants you in a
I have a question.
Yeah, Mr. Weigel.
Mr. Phelan or Mr. Gostin, maybe this is for you or President Sandy. This wouldn't apply to, obviously, city administration has purchasing authority up to $50,000. Would they still have that ability in case of an emergency or something where the fire department needed something or the police department needed something or public works needed something in case of an emergency? Would you guys still be able to do that?
Maybe if I could start, Council President Sandy. I think what I would, in the policy, the intent of, I guess, myself as administration is that we would bring all joint cooperative purchases to you, even if they're less than 50,000. And I think, Mr. Weigel, what you've talked about is maybe a sole source. In the purchasing policy, there's an alternative pathway on a sole source. That would be a sole source purchase where we can move forward less than 50,000 administratively. Anything over 50,000, we got to bring back to under a sole source. But you should see anything that's purchased under a cooperative joint purchase should be a planned purchase. And if something is an emergency, we bring that under a different process.
Perfect. I just want to make sure that those two processes were distinctly different in case the city needed something.
Thank you, Mr. Weigel. Okay. Any other comments for the good of the order? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Pose same sign. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Under item 4, 2 action items. 4.1, reconsideration of bid award City Project 9106, municipal city waste, solid waste, landfill, soil treatment pad construction. I had asked for this to be, I emailed the council last week. I had asked for this to be put back on the agenda. Ms. Lipsch, if you want to say a few words, otherwise I can speak my piece. Whatever, you came to the podium, so if you have something you want to add.
Thank you, Mr. Sandy, committee members. First of all, I want to correct something I said last week. Dirty Deeds did have some communication with Carmen about a couple of the items in the bid, and so I want to correct that. And I probably need to do a better job of describing what this project actually is. The project involves constructing 2 clay-lined pads. One is going to be for soil storage of untreated material, and the other is going to be the treatment pad where the soil gets actually treated. The other segment of the project is to set some benchmarks, some survey markers, and then to build road connectivity to these soil treatment pads so our contractors can get the material to the needed places. This is a permitted landfill project with strict requirements. It has some impacts on operations, compliance, and revenue. A great deal of thought was put into my recommendation, and the specifications were drawn up by Burns & McDonnell, who have years of experience in designing projects like this. And honestly, I want what's in the best interest of the city. This isn't personal. We reviewed their questionnaire, past work performance, and references, and we identified concerns related to their work history, safety, staffing levels, and equipment availability. Last year, they were a sub to Tony Anderson Construction for the bridge repair projects. That projects weren't listed on their questionnaire. We checked with the project engineer who told us there were some job site management and safety concerns on the project, specifically on University Avenue. Last week, Cordell spoke about previous landfill experience. And in 2018, they did do I understand they did do a project at the Jamestown landfill. This project was also not included on their questionnaire. Today, I spoke with a sanitation foreman about this project from Jamestown, and he said they successfully completed the project, but it took longer than expected. After I gave him a brief overview of our project, I asked him, said, can Dirty Deeds perform this project? And he had concerns about whether or not they were equipped for the level of this project and for the requirements of this project. Carmen followed up with Dirty Deeds this morning at some point to ask them a few areas or to confirm some things in questions we had about their information. And so I'm going to turn it over here to Carmen for a minute, and she will tell you what they told her.
Good evening. I'll keep it brief. So I just had a couple of questions for Dirty Deeds. I asked the same questions of Gowan too, but I asked how many staff that Dirty Deeds would have on site, and they said 4 to 5 crew members. I asked who their surveyor was, and that was CPS at 90% certainty. And we have in the specs that the surveyor has to be a licensed surveyor within the state of North Dakota. And then I asked about equipment, and they listed that they had excavators, dozers, payloaders, and dump trucks, and a skid steer and a packer, but there was no blade graders, rollers, or water trucks as noted in the specs on page 27.
So I was surprised when Carmen told me earlier today that CPS was going to be their surveyor of choice for their project. I talked to CPS last week as I hired them to do some preliminary surveying work along the boundary so we can make sure that the adjacent farmer doesn't farm too close to our project area. And so she told me last week that she did not bid any survey work for the project on the contractor's behalf because she was already contracted by the city to perform work. So that's concerning. Carmen and I last week, or earlier throughout this process, had contacted several references. Carmen contacted Kelby Laxdal. He's with Houston Engineering. He did the bridge rehab projects. Dan Hansen, Water Operations Manager. Anthony Ryan, Civil Engineer Senior. Christian Danielson, Assistant City Engineer. I contacted Dan Fisher. He was the engineer on the Walhalla project. Devin Johnson, the Pembina County Highway Superintendent. And I talked to Sean O'Neill today he's the sanitation foreman with the Jamestown landfill. In general, this is what we heard. They struggle to get paperwork in on time. They generally have 2 people on their job sites, Cordell and his dad, Aaron. They have indicated in the past that they have additional help coming, but the additional help generally doesn't ever come. We heard on the flood wall crack rehab project that it went exceptionally well. They were cooperative to work with and met the city's expectations. On the flood outfall, we heard that there was difficulty in getting them to follow the plans and specs, that they wanted to do it their way, not the way the project was designed. It took the threat of canceling the contract to get them to follow the specifications. And there's more, but I'll keep it as brief as I can. The landfill project is unique from other city projects because, and the reason I say that is time is money when it comes to this project, because we have a lot of opportunities coming our way this summer with projects that are happening in and around the Grand Forks area. We can treat some of that material at our proposed treatment pad, and we get paid tipping fees at $68.47 a ton to do that. The Twining School has a project happening right now. They want us to take 800 yards. I told them no, because we don't have the pads developed yet, but that would be $34,000 worth of revenue if we could. There's a project being planned along South Washington Street, has about 1,100 yards. That's about $45,000 worth. We have the 42nd Street and Demers project. We're still trying to develop quantities for that project. Plus there will be others, which is why the DEQ asked us to design and build these soil treatment pads in the first place. So the city can and most likely will miss out on revenue if this project isn't built timely and to specification. And I agree that we should give contractors opportunities, but this is not the project to do that on. If this was a culvert job, a drainage project, a bridge project, I would more than happily recommend the low bid if Dirty Deeds was a low bid in those types of projects. The equipment that Carmen listed, they do not propose to have the equipment that's required for this project. Pneumatic rollers are, and there's 3 different kinds of rollers that are required on this project because of the compaction that's needed on the soil treatment pads and the retaining walls to keep the rainwater, the snow melt, the other liquid on the site. We don't want that material, those petroleum contaminated liquids leaving that site. They need to stay on those pads. So anybody can bid on projects, but it doesn't mean you're qualified to complete the project. So based upon everything we reviewed, we do not believe the low bidder has demonstrated they can successfully deliver this project as specified. The decision is not just about the lowest number, it's about the lowest responsible bidder. I'll stand for any questions.
Yes, Mr. Friedhoff?
More of just a comment. Strangely, this one kept me up. And so, I think working on this project, we are not hazmat experts. We are not construction experts. I don't want to see what would happen if the project went awry and we didn't trust her professionalism and her judgment on this, and it came back to us as not being able to be completed or not done in a way where it couldn't even be used. I think that's something we can't stomach. And so I think we follow her lead, and I think we go with what the city has proposed as the correct vendor.
Thank you, Mr. Friedhoff. Yes, Ms. Linsky.
So are we voting tonight to move it forward to next week, or is this the final?
So I'd like to make the motion to reconsider, and we would need a second. And if there's a second, then we would have to support the reconsideration. And after that, then we would be acting on what we could decide to give it to Ms. Averils if we wanted to. I wouldn't recommend that, but we could. So for the sake of argument, we can have more discussion about the reconsideration, but before we go on, I would like to make the motion to reconsider.
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Osowski. So we would need 4 people to support reconsideration, and then we could have further discussion. Do you agree with that, Mr. Gosted?
That's correct. You got to get past whether the council will reconsider the matter. If there is an approval on that motion for reconsideration, then you'd get into the substance of whether you would award the bid to either the lowest monetary bid or the lowest responsible bidder.
Sure. Thank you. So is there any additional discussion about the motion for reconsideration? Is Mr. Veen? Yes, sir.
This is just procedural. It's helpful to hear why you want to reconsider it when you're voting to reconsider versus just the reconsideration.
As long as the city attorney doesn't mind me providing my input. No? Okay.
You've got a motion, and this is the moment and time for discussion on the motion.
Thank you. I certainly value Ms. Lipsch, the work, and Ms. Neuschwander, the effort that they put in to provide additional information. I'd like to give Dirty Deeds the opportunity to respond to the discussion matters of whether they will have the equipment there or not. I don't know if he understood the question of whether they own those rollers. Maybe he thought they had to own them today, and his plan was to rent them. I don't know how that conversation went. I think it's worthy of additional discussion. Again, in my personal opinion, I think that we owe it to the contractors that come to us offering to do good work in our community the opportunity to fail. And I recognize that this is a unique circumstance. And Mr. Friedels, I agree with what you're saying. I just think that Dirty Deeds hasn't failed us in a project to the best of my knowledge. And I've spoken with several of the people that were two. I've spoken to two of their references. One that emailed overnight and the other one that called me and left me a message this afternoon speaking very highly of their work. And so I think part of the difficulty, Gowans are long time, really good contractor that build highways and do good work. They're very good people. They do excellent jobs for our community. They also have 28 times the staff and the office people that can put together really good brochures and responses to RFPs. And not that they don't have the attention to detail, but the Gowan, they just have more everything to do those things. And unless and until we give some smaller people the opportunity to be successful on city jobs, we'll just, I think we will then just continue to disqualify the little guy because they just can't compete. They can't compete with the infrastructure those other organizations have. So I recognize that this is an important job. I also think that we owe it to the people that raise their hand and say they want to do good work for our community to give them the opportunity to do so, which is why I've made the motion for reconsideration. And if you agree with my concept, then we'll get 4 votes, and if not, we'll move on. Anyone else on the reconsideration? Yes, Ms. Lensky?
Mine is maybe a little different, but the thing this one's kept me up too is the engineer's estimate was 800,000 and they came in half of that. And that concerns me because are we talking apples to apples? Like, why was there $400,000 difference? That's a lot of money.
I wish I had an answer for that, Ms. Lunsky. Burns and McDonald put together the estimate. I'm not sure why they thought it was going to be quite expensive. I don't know, unfortunately.
I think Councilmember Lunsky, I think the good thing in this way, the bids are all lower than the engineer's estimate. So I focus on that there's a group of bidders between that 400,000 to 600,000 range. And so it seems like plus or minus, I would focus more on that than the engineer's estimate.
Mr. Veen? Yes, sir.
I go back to the lowest responsible bidder. That's kind of the definition of what we're looking for. And for me, the best indicator of the future is their past. It's the only thing you can really look at the past. And just because they're small doesn't mean they can't have a great past. And from what I'm hearing, there's some that are good, some not so good. And so that raises alarm for me that past, it isn't about being small. It's about past work that they've done and has it met the requirements, specifications, or whatever. Because you're right. I mean, we don't want to not have people grow. If people aren't aware of it, I remember when Op Construction did their first street job in Grand Forks. It was on Cherry Street. Okay. And so they grew, so you've got to start someplace. But I didn't think we had this level of concern about the past.
I don't mean to disparage Op Construction because they're friends of mine, but I'll bet you could find people that would say that they've made mistakes on some jobs themselves. right? Or Gowans, or you name it. They've all had growing pains. It comes with the territory. Further comments?
I agree with Mr. Sandy.
Oh, yeah, it's nice. It's
Yeah.
nice. All right. So on the reconsideration, why don't we do a roll call vote? Put everybody in.
All right, this is for reconsideration. Thank you. We'll start with you, Mrs. Husky.
Yes.
Weigel,
No.
Berg,
No.
Lensky,
Yes.
Friedels,
No.
Bean,
No.
President Sandy.
Yes.
Motion
Motion fails
3-4.
4-3. The Linsky and Osowski and Sandy in the affirmative. Thank you. Okay. Item 4.2, reconsideration, Alaris Commission meeting location resolution. Mr. Veen. Mr. Veen, can you turn your microphone on, please? Thank you, sir.
Okay, I did. I shut it off. I've asked to consider reconsideration of the Alaris Commission meeting location directive that we passed last week. Basically saying that the commission meetings should align with other city equivalent board meetings to be held at city hall chambers and to be, I guess I interpret it to be publicly broadcast. And since that meeting, and it's hard to vote against being open, publicly open, and allowing the public to hear what's going on. But I did some of my due diligence, especially as a representative of the Alaris Commission and sitting in on so many of the commission meetings. I felt there were unintended consequences that needed to be, and that's the reason why we wanted to bring this back. And those consequences, I would think, would be fairly devastating to both the city and the Alaris Center, because there is vital confidential information that is regularly discussed at commission meetings, and that information should not be broadcast. It's kind of like allowing, we'll say, the Fargo Dome to sit in and listen to what's going on at the Alaris Center, to know how well we're doing, how well we're not doing. I mean, the information we talk about are financial reports, the monthly financial statement, year-to-date financial, accounts receivable, accounts payable, balance sheet, income statement, rolling forecast statements. Those are things that are discussed at every meeting as we go forward. We talk about event breakdown, event spreads, confidential upcoming events, and our capital improvement schedule, which shows the directions we're going. Now, all this information is available, just so you know. I mean, it's discussed. We do an agenda. We do minutes from the meeting. The minutes are filed, and are available publicly. If people come to our meetings, we've never turned anybody away from coming to a meeting. But for 25 years, this has worked quite well. And what makes the Alaris Commission and what they do, it almost operates as a quasi-business, not a typical city department. And it was designed that way, to have it run by the board. The commission itself is typically business people that work in the city of Grand Forks that have a business background that can learn to operate the Alaris Center more as a business than just as a department. And so after I really had put all of that together, I thought that the status quo was working. The center has been extremely successful. It's brought tremendous returns back to us. And I guess I want to reconsider, because I don't think we looked at all of that, took that into consideration when we passed the earlier motion. I know I didn't. That's all I can say about for me.
Thank you, Mr. Veen.
I have a comment.
Comment? Yes, Ms. Osowski?
Yeah. I mean, I respect a lot about what Mr. Veen said, and I guess I necessarily don't care that much if they come into the chambers or not. But I do think that it needs to be recorded and available. There's a lot of taxpayer money at stake when it comes to the Alara Center. And right now they're operating well, but they haven't always. And so I do think that we need to maybe rein them in a little bit and just, be more aware of what's going on. When it comes to, I don't think our finances should really be private. We own it. That's city tax dollars. That shouldn't be private. When it comes to upcoming events, though, I do see a problem, with trying to compete with other venues around the state. But I don't understand why maybe the Alaris board can't go into a little bit of executive session and maybe just discuss that quietly. We go into executive session once in a while, but I don't think there's anything wrong with us videotaping. All of our other committees are broadcast, and I understand the concerns, but this is a lot of taxpayer funds that are on the table, and like I said, I don't care where it's at. I don't care if they want to keep doing it at the Alara Center, but I do think it should be more visible to the public, especially when it is taxpayer funds, and if there are things that need to be said behind the scenes that maybe we don't want other communities to know about, I think that's a perfect time to just kind of step away. Maybe, let Mr. Phelan or other people who are more involved with that, give a smaller rundown to us on those portions. But most of our other committees are recorded. But I don't care if it's in the chambers or not. So.
One quick response. They are recorded. So we do have an audio recording, but we do not have the video that you have.
It can be video, though. I don't see that there should be any issue with making it video. And I believe when you and I were talking earlier today, you stated that they're recorded verbally, but then they're not available unless they're asked for, correct? And so, they still are out there, but I think the community sometimes has a lot of questions about some of these processes. And I think right now is a good time to just be more transparent with the taxpayers and some of these things. And so, like I said, I don't care where it's at. I think it should be video recorded and whatever topics, because I don't want to cause issues with us being profitable at the Alara Center with talking about upcoming events. I thought that's a great thing that maybe we should, hold those conversations behind closed doors. But I do not think our finances should be discussed behind closed doors. That's taxpayer funds. So.
Thank you, Ms. Osowski. Mr. Veen, can you give me an example of what is discussed that would be sensitive in nature? I don't think OVG comes to the commission and says that we're negotiating to bring ZZ Top to Grand Forks and here's our strategy, right? So what can you give me an example of? I've been to a whole lot of Alaris Commission meetings and I don't recall hearing anything revolutionary.
Probably go through, I made that list of the various areas that are reported out every meeting. And it's like your profit and loss statements that you'd have, and you'd look at where your profit areas are and and what's being successful for us. And then, how we do our expenses. I apologize. I should have brought a copy of that with me. I didn't, to be able to get into show you each one on an example by example basis. But I just generally don't see the benefit of displaying that publicly. Like we said, it's available. You'd have to come. You could look at it. Nobody has to date, but it'd be so easy for anybody from around the country to sit in on the meetings and know how we're spending our money or what the types of events that we have. That's my concern.
Further comment?
President Sandy, can I
Yes, sir.
just say one comment?
Mr. Mayor?
I think a lot of the issue that happened recently would not have happened had we had the meetings here. Everyone would have been aware of what's going on. We're basically telling a local vendor, you got to come and find this information, but a national one will come find you and will work with you. I just don't think that's right. I think this can be positive going forward. If the building's doing well, it's going to keep doing well. Having a public meeting that's recorded that the community gets to see isn't going to hurt that. I think going to the future, we're not just looking a year, 2 years. There could be a different third party that's running. It could be totally different people. It could be different commissioners. It could be different council members. Let's set up a plan going forward that makes the most sense for the community so they know what's going on with the largest, second largest asset in the entire city. So I don't see this as a negative at all. I think it's positive. If there's positives going on, someone can be on Facebook or Channel 2 and get to see all the great things that the Alerus Center is doing. I just think we're missing some of these things by deciding what information's confidential, not confidential. If it falls within an executive session, you do it there. There's also proprietary stuff that the Alerus Center is going to hold. They're not going to tell you what the number of attendees are at a certain concert. That's not going to get discussed in an open meeting either. So I think it's only positives and only benefits. I think it's a good path going forward, looking at the long term.
Thank you, Mayor. Further discussion?
I'll make the motion. Is that
Yep,
have a second?
yep. He's making a motion to reconsider.
I'm sorry, I'll do it with the mic on again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
So
make the motion.
Mr. Veen has moved to reconsider. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Weigel. Thank you. Yes, Ms. Osowski. So now we've.
I'm
what we've
confused about what I'm
essentially-
voting on.
What we've essentially just done is,
We're gonna-
we nullified the vote that we had last Monday, and now we can take action on something new, should we wish to.
So we're having a vote to reconsider moving, because we voted last
Right.
Monday to move them into the chambers.
Right.
And now we're voting to reconsider moving them into the chambers. Is that correct?
That, Mr. Gosted, do you want to just chime in?
Yeah, what are we
I will.
talking about?
Procedurally, all you're doing is allowing another, if you vote in favor of the motion for reconsideration, you would then have another vote on the substance as to whether you want to have a resolution or not. So if this motion fails, we don't go any further. If it passes, then there would have to be another motion as to whether you want to adopt a resolution as to where the Alerus Center Commission would conduct its meetings.
But right now, as it stands, they're here,
Yes.
right? In the chambers?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Ready for a roll call vote?
Ready for a roll call vote? Thank you.
All right, Weigel,
Yes.
Osowski,
No.
Berg,
No.
Lunsky. Friedels,
No.
Veen,
Yes.
and President Sandy.
Nope.
Motion fails.
Thank you. Good discussion. Item 5, city council member discussion items. Ms. Osowski?
No, thank you, Mr. President.
Ms. Berg?
Junior Grand Am was this past weekend. It was phenomenal.
Great. Awesome. Ms. Lunsky? Mr. Friels?
All right. So the bane of all our existence is this mall.
The Columbia Mall. The Columbia Mall. There
Yes,
are
Columbia
other
Mall. Let me
malls
say
that-
Columbia Mall. Sorry.
Okay.
I have had probably no less than 3-4 voicemails plus texts and everything else. The entrance near Wells Fargo, one lady lost her bumper and had to get her car realigned. Even like social media is making fun of how big the potholes are now. So like, I think we need to figure out some way to make sure that the group is at least repairing these things. They are horrible. I saw some photos today and it will engulf your car. So that's all I have to say, but we really need to figure something out to just, it's a public safety hazard at this point. And then also, we had some really strange things going on Chestnut, and Chief Friedman's really helped me out, and Al Grasser, when he was still here, helped. Someone seems to be removing storm sewer drain covers and leaving big holes in the ground where children or somebody else could fall into. And it wasn't just like a weird random like thing. They replaced them, and a week later they were back off again. So even Al said it looks like an act of vandalism. And so there's been a couple police reports filed about it. Multiple incidents this actually started way back in August of last year. And then April of this year, there's been like 2 or 3 incidents again. So just keep an eye out. I appreciate everyone's help on this. We can't weld them shut or anything. So I think it's just, if you hear about this, it's just something's going on. And, you know, they can, like Chief provided, someone could put out a trail cam, something to capture who's doing it. But it's the same ones. I don't think it's caused by a snowplow or anything. So I don't know, but just keep your eyes open and make sure your kids don't fall in a storm drain.
Yeah.
I just saw Mr. Phelan, because I was complaining about Columbia Mall also, and I just saw Mr. Phelan sent out an email to the property owners, but I 100% agree. We need to address that. It's dangerous. So,
Mr. Gosted, did you have something to add, sir?
I do. We are looking into what authority the city has to try to cure that very problem. Hopefully, we'll have some answers within the next week.
Thank you, Mr. Gosted. Mr. Veen? Anything for the good of the order? Vice President Weigel?
No, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Is there a motion?
I move
adjournment. By Osowski, second by Berg. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned. Thank you. Good meeting.